Warner Brothers is the Hollywood studio that gave us the iconic brands such as Looney Tunes, Harry Potter, The Matrix, and Game of Thrones. They are also the owner of the DC superhero universe, and they have handled it with mass incompetence. There's been a lot of debacles in their use of these properties over the years. And most recently, you might have heard that Henry Cavill is out as Superman, no longer the Man of Steel. And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is out as Black Adam. And a Batgirl movie that was in production in which they spent $90 million. It fell flat in test screenings, and the new bosses decided to pull it and just kill it. My question today is, why don't they do a live-action Static Shock project? This character is influential, popular, and a household name, and Warner Brothers doesn't seem to be doing anything with it. Why not? Let's talk about it. Welcome to Comic Power. My name is Comic Killer 72, and welcome to another episode of The Quick Flip. This is the program where I go over comic book industry news in a short period of time. All right, let's get right into it. So, if we're going to talk about Static Shock, we got to talk about how he was created. He is a product of Milestone Media. This is a comic book company that was started by African-American creators, which were very few at the time because the big two didn't seem to concentrate on any characters of color other than Luke Cage, Black Panther, and Storm over at Marvel, and Cyborg and Jon Stewart over at DC. I'm not saying that these are the only African-American characters that the big two had, but these were the five that got the chance to be a lead, not just a supporting character. And this is the early 90s we're talking about. It was a different era. So Milestone was formed to bring a spotlight to African-American heroes in a multicultural universe created by African-Americans themselves, and taking on the Herculean task of doing this with original characters. And the founders of Milestone Media were Dennis Cowan, businessman Derek T. Dingle, Michael Davis, and the late Dwayne McDuffie, may he rest in peace. Quick sidebar, Christopher Priest was also asked to join, but he declined. He's most famous for creating the Dora Milaje with the Black Panther universe in 1998. These creators decided to keep the copyright and the control of their characters under their own umbrella, and they worked out a publishing and distribution deal with DC to get it in comic book shops. And that's how Milestone was born, and they made their debut in 1993 with Icon and Rocket, an alien superhero based off the Superman archetype. Hardware, an inventor who becomes a vigilante and uses a suit of armor to do it, based off the Iron Man archetype. And most famous of them all, Static, a character that they based off of Spider-Man, a teenager by who chance gets superpowers and has to learn that with great power comes great responsibility. Instead of spider powers, he gets electrical powers. Instead of being a white kid, he's a black kid. So all of these characters that I just mentioned exist in the same universe in a fictional city called Dakota. It existed in its own little pocket universe outside of DC, but because comics, they found a way for these characters to mix with the DC characters in the future. On a personal level, I loved all these characters from the beginning, and I was collecting all of these titles. And Static gave us something we really haven't seen before in mainstream comics, and that's the black nerd character as lead. Being that the comic book industry has always been dominated by white guys, I don't think they could make a character this three-dimensional that was a black teen. So he's a blurred, which is a mashup of black and nerd. Of course, he gets beat up repeatedly by the high school bully, and he wrongly gets encouraged by a friend to take a gun to get revenge on that bully at a showdown between rival gangs. He's given a handgun to do it, but he just can't go through with it. However, in the plot twist, the police did a sting operation and released some experimental tear gas, and winds up doing three things to the kids that are there. They either die, turn into a mutated monster, or get metahuman powers. And our lead character, Virgil Hawkins, turns into the superhero Static. I know he looks nothing like the animated version which came later, but hey, this is what they started with. I thought it was great with a triumph of the nerd story and its numerous black culture references, which started from the beginning, such as the phrase, static, don't start none, won't be none. In the black community, the phrase static means troublemakers that want to start something. So as long as you don't start no trouble, we cool, everything will be alright. But if you do, I'm ready for it. Bring it. His villains are also other kids who got exposed to the gas, such as Hot Streak, Tarmac, and Holocaust. Not sure if that name has aged very well, but that crosses Static over with the Blood Syndicate, which is a merger of rival gangs after the big incident with the gas. They had their own title too that ran 35 issues. But back to Static. Static is aided by two friends, Rick Stone and Larry Wade, and his love interest is a girl named Frida Gorin. Issue number 5 dips into black culture again with the phrase, there's a riot going on. This is in reference to the classic album from Sly and the Family Stone from 1971, which included one of their biggest hits, It's a Family Affair. It's the first song to go number 1 on the Billboard Top 100 using a drum machine. Static is known for his hoverboard, but at the time they were using a trash can, a piece of asphalt, or whatever he could use at the time, until he fully streamlined it like we know it today. The issues just kept on coming from Static. In issue number 40, they crossed him over with the Lost Boys. This is a mostly forgotten Queens, New York rap group. They had a minor hit with the Jeeps, the Lex Coops, Beamers, and the Benz around 1995, and their lead rapper, Mr. Cheeks, had a big hit with Lights, Camera, Action in 2001. So the first volume of the Static series called it a wrap after 45 issues. This is around 1997, and this was in response to the comic book crash of 1996, when speculators got out of the market and it crashed really badly because they had been buying multiple copies for so long, thinking that these books were going to be worth a lot of money, but they weren't because everyone had multiple copies. Even Marvel had to file for bankruptcy at the time. It was a real crazy period if you wasn't there. That's a story worthy of its own video. But here's the good news. DC had already partnered with Milestone Media with the intention of turning Static into an animated series. And then finally in September of 2000, Static Shock, the animated series, made it to television. And it lasted for 4 great seasons. The character was voiced by Phil Lamar. This guy is great. He made his first claim to fame as a member of the cast of Mad TV as the UBS mail guy. This guy is so talented. He's done the voice of literally hundreds of characters, including Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, and Aquaman as well. This collage is only a small sample of the characters he's done. It's just tremendous. The animated series does a good job of broadening his appeal without diluting it. I'll give it 2 thumbs up. Of course, they give the character a major redesign from the comic book version, and the tone is a little lighter. It's not as dark as the comics were. They were selling this to a general audience overall, and not just a black audience, so I get the change. This show has a lot of nostalgia for it. It lasted 4 seasons. It's not as good as, say, X-Men 92, but hey, what is? But it is pretty good and it holds up pretty well. It helped the character become a recognizable brand. Even my mom knew who Static Shock is. And think about how influential this character is. I don't think that you can get to Miles Morales Spider-Man without Static Shock, because he's the forerunner of a black male teen superhero that has mass appeal, that can be loved by the black audience and other audiences that are not black as well. So the irony here is that Static Shock is inspired by Peter Parker's Spider-Man and winds up influencing Miles Morales' Spider-Man. So Miles Morales becomes a big hit in 2011 with Ultimate Fallout #4 and then his own ongoing series after that. And the character's popularity keeps exploding all the way up to his 2018 Spider-Verse film where he headlines. And this movie makes a ton of money, it wins an Oscar, and now Miles Morales is a household name. So you would think with Static Shock's influence on Miles Morales that DC and Milestone would put this character back out there again, but this is Warner Brothers we're talking about. They're not the sharpest tool in the toolbox. But maybe I should cut them a little slack because Milestone owns the copyright to the whole universe of Dakota. Static Shock and some of these other characters did make minor appearances in the New 52 in DC, but they were kind of like afterthoughts. So in saying that, it took a while, but the full Milestone Pocket Dakota universe returned in 2020, bringing back the Dakota universe and putting out an anthology one-shot which updates the origin of all their main characters, Icon and Rocket, Hardware, and of course Static Shock. And they tweak his origin just a little bit. Instead of getting exposed to gas at a gang war, he gets exposed to it at a Black Lives Matter rally. And let's face it, having a comic series back for this character is great, but he is big enough to hold down a film franchise of his own. And I get the politics of what's going on right now with James Gunn taking over as the head guy over at the movies for DC. And he's out there slashing everything. So if you decide you want to do television, we could try that out too. I mean, nothing against Black Lightning. The show was just okay, but I would have preferred that they had tried Static Shock. I mean, the show was on the CW, which appeals to a young audience, and the Black Lightning character was played by a 45-year-old actor at the time. And then they tried to put Naomi out there, and that whole thing crashed and burned. Nobody even asked for it. So yeah, it's way more than time for a Static Shock live action project, either a movie or television. Back in 2020, Michael B. Jordan was announced as a producer of a Static Shock movie that was supposed to be coming. But that's probably DOA. He's very busy, and of course, Warner Brothers is in chaos. So allow me to insert myself and do some casting for this movie. For the lead of Virgil Hawkins, aka Static Shock, I would pick Dallas Dupree Young. He's not very well known, but he's receiving critical acclaim as a supporting actor on Cobra Kai, which is a continuation of the Karate Kid franchise, bringing back all the actors and introducing new ones. He plays a shy kid named Kenny who's getting picked on, and he joins Cobra Kai to try to protect himself, and it winds up turning him evil. Dallas is just 16 years old at the time I made this in 2023, so he could play this role for 10 years and not age out. His love interest of Frida Gordon should be played by Francesca Cabaldi. She also is not very well known, but she starred in the Disney Channel show Dog with a Blog. She's 18 years old at the time I made this video, and she's also a natural redhead like the character is supposed to be. I also put Curtis Metcalf, aka Hardware, in this film, but don't make him a superhero yet. I'd make him Virgil's science teacher at school who mentors Virgil, and be played by Omario Hardwick, best known for his role as Ghost in Power. Like I said, a civilian in the movie, but they could have an end credit where he's building his first armor as a tease of what's going to happen in the sequel where he actually suits up to. The director of this film should be Rick Fumawa. I never could pronounce his name right, but he's famous for directing The Wood, Brown Sugar, and most famously, Dope. He also directed 3 episodes of The Mandalorian. He's very good and he should be getting more work. If you need somebody to write this story, just contact me. I'm available. Here's my email address. So there you have it. Virgil Hawkins' Static Shock should be a live action movie. The character has brand recognition, influence, and nostalgia upon a whole generation. So a film franchise starring him should be a no-brainer in my opinion. While you're here, be sure to check out a previous video I made about Miles Morales when he celebrated his 10th anniversary back in 2021 if you missed it. This is my first full-length video of 2023. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, this is Comic Killer 72 for Comic Power saying bye-bye.